A better world is possible, that justice is necessary, and that peace is something we're going to have in our lifetime. So let me, without further ado, I'm going to bring Mel King up to start us off.
We know people need, as if it was me, we, you, who had the need and you wanted it for you. And one of the things I want to take out of our language is the word poor. There is no such thing as a poor person. Now you think of it, and I was working with some folks in Dorchester, and I said, you know, there's a lot of language about all the poor folks here, Dorchester, Roxbury, etc. I said, why do you think Stop and Shop opened up a new store there? Well, they were going to make some money. Who were they going to make it off of? Who? They weren't looking at people because they were poor. They saw the potential resource that each one of those persons and families has. And we have to understand that. And as we talk and think about what we want to do, we have to see the strengths in the people and believe in their capacity to move forward in the same way you believe you're moving forward. And if we have that, like the folks in Utah, you know, get into some negation language that I believe people use to justify the fact that they are not moving to meet the needs of folks. And so if we start with that, and with the belief that each of those folks is me, is we, then we will change the way we see each other and the way we work together. I'm just going to close with a little poem called Earthling. Dear Earthling Leader, look in the mirror. See if it's you who cares, who loves, who shares, who reaches, who teaches about the gifts of creation, of the air and the art in earth, of the ear and the art in heart. So we listen and cultivate the gifts from earth's bounty to share. So we listen and cultivate the beauty of all earthlings because we care. Dear Earthling Leader, with open arms, embrace the hugs of our earthly love. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. Woohoo! So here we are, approaching another tax day, and lots of folks are home stressing about getting their paperwork done, but not Apple. They're not worried about getting their paperwork done. Neither is Bank of America and a bunch of those other folks, because they really want to get their paperwork in so that they can get a big cash bonus back from the U.S. government. So we've done this event before, and we've done it before because taxes are the piece that everybody likes to complain about. But what it's really about is budgets as a moral document. A society says a lot about itself by what it puts forward as its government's budget and its government's priorities. And that's what brings us here today, all of us working on different issues. Sometimes we don't even see each other for a year or two, but we're all fighting for the same thing. And it's important occasionally to get together.
The federal government and our federal budget should be focused on those who need a hand to help themselves, to help their children, to build a brighter future for themselves.
Obama had inherited a huge deficit created by two unfunded wars and huge tax cuts to the rich. That was the Republican agenda. It exploded inequality all over the country. We all see it every day. That was when it really took off exponentially. And that's what we're trying to do, is deal with the consequences. But when they got control of the House, we realized it was a much deeper problem and that we really needed to reach out to allies in the labor movement, in the peace movement, in all the other movements that were fighting to protect programs that serve people.
He taught us how we could stand up for ourselves and meet with management, and that we were somebody. That we didn't have to just take what was being presented to us. So we formed a tenants association in Queen Anne Gates. And through the help of Micah Kane, we got our Section 8s. Woo-hoo!
Urban America also needs a federal program to pay for infrastructure improvements to move our schools into the 21st century. The thought of getting all children prepared for a new world economy in schools that have the structure of the 1930s and the technological capacity of the 1990s, that's on a good day, is just an impossible dream. We need tax reform at the state level so our communities and schools can count on a reliable and steady source of funding for our schools so long-range planning can take place. We look forward to the day when our social and tax policies treat our students as well as our current government policies favors the 1%. Thank you very much.
Senator Ron Wyden, at the moment, is crafting a fast-track bill, this very moment. This deal is international, so why am I bringing it up to a Boston-based tax day forum? Because the economic consequences are terrible for all Massachusetts residents. Bear with me, because I want to explain something. The TPP has a provision called the Investor-State Dispute Settlement, ISDS. The ISDS would allow foreign companies to challenge U.S. law if that law or regulation decreases their profit, even their future profit. And when they sue the United States, they pick up huge payouts from the taxpayers.
Historical approach of the past by making sure our voices are heard, by being consistently in the faces of these decision makers and letting them know this is what we're fighting for. We're fighting for today a budget for all, right? We need to be exactly the people's budget. It's an opportunity for us to make sure our voices are heard. They might have the dollars, but they do not have the people, because we are the people, and we're here today, and we're going to be in the streets, and we're going to be at their offices.
The Overseas Contingency Operations Account, or OCO. Now, this slush fund is where they put the wish list. This is the wish list for the Pentagon. It was funded in this recent budget resolution that Congress passed. $90 billion. That is above the base budget, not subject to the budget caps. So this is $90 billion. If it were a federal agency, it would be the second largest, second only to the Pentagon.
We have working with Mass Now, the Women's Bar Association, and the Commission on Women to try to address that problem. Another issue that I'm really excited about is the budget for all. And the budget for all I'm excited about because it's us talking about our values. In 2012, this was on the ballot. I think that you can see vote yes for budget for all, the campaign sign, and it passed overwhelmingly.
And I can say, speaking for our members, that we are here to support fair tax and a budget for all because we see every day the ravages of economic injustice in our classrooms. We know what homelessness does to families. We know what hunger does to children. We know what happens when there aren't mental health services available for families and for children. We feel that every day, and we are committed as a union to fighting for the well-being of our communities.
And it is beyond clear that we've got to change it. As part of the generation that will inherit the wreckage of this earth, I can say that all my life I've grown up in fear of the future. I see the climate becoming chaotic and volatile, and all around me people either wring their hands or close their eyes and act like everything is going on as normal. And kids my age tell me, I hate politics. And I tell them, so do I. But you can't live in apathy just because the world looks prettier from there. Nothing will change if you avoid it or don't care. Instead, trillions will keep being spent to fortify a structure that has no place in it for most of us and no place for the sustainable ways of living.
Charleston, South Carolina, which is, it puts the lie to the notion that police are defending themselves. We have a militarized police establishment, which is part of a militarized economy, which is part of a militarized foreign policy. And fortunately, these things can all be fixed together. In fact, we cannot fix any one of them without fixing all of them.
If we get every city in town, and most of them in this state, to send that resolution to the legislature, the governor has to take notice, and that bill will have legs all the way through the legislative process. Okay? What do you say? What's the message you're going to give these legislators? Number one, I don't want to continue paying for leaked and unaccounted for gas that the utility loses. The utility company stockholders should pay for that gas. Not me, not you.
In order to meet our priorities, more than 25% of the Massachusetts state budget comes from federal dollars. That is money that our state legislatures decide what our priorities are. A good chunk of it is Medicaid dollars, because we made a decision that we wanted to ensure all of our people in this state. And so we expanded Medicaid. We use dollars to help fund our transit infrastructure, because federal money is part of our transit dollars in this state. It's used to fund education. It's used to fund housing and community development.
I was one of the people that just disbelieved in everything. Until a worker came to me and we shared similarities of the same struggles that we go through. So when the worker asked me, by the way, his name is Wendeli, he had asked me, do you go through the struggles of having to pay rent and not eating, or eating and not have enough money for the rent? My eyes got watery, and I told him, you know what, it's true. Sometimes I don't eat because I'd rather have a roof over my head.
The famous four: Jim McGovern, Catherine Clark, Mike Capuano, and new joining the team this year, Stephen Lynch. Who are the disgraceful five that did not vote for the people's budget? Richie Neal, Nikki Songus, Bill Keating, Joe Kennedy, and new joining the terrible five this year, Seth Moulton.
Oh my goodness, and Iran and the whole thing. And I know the peace activists here, right? They're hoping that this resolution with Iran, this treaty with Iran will happen. But a lot of people are very upset, saying you can't let Iran get a nuclear weapon. It'll upset the delicate nuclear weapon balance in the world. 100 nuclear weapons for Israel, 1,000 nuclear weapons for France, 1,500 nuclear weapons for Russia, 2,500 nuclear weapons for America, 1 nuclear weapon for Iran, giving them the advantage.
Immediately see victory, it all adds up to a movement that I really believe will be successful. And I think what we know is that the American public is on our side. They believe far too much money is being spent for our U.S. military, and we're seeing the devastating cuts in each and every one of our communities. So this is an effort to fight back.
Now, our campaigns are all focused on climate change and energy-related issues, but it's very important for you to understand that we stand together on issues of economic, environmental, and social justice. Climate change is a justice issue because we will suffer first and worst. If we don't work together, we will drown together. So let's all commit to joining our voices and saying enough. Enough with enabling pollution. Enough with giving tax breaks to bigwigs and big corporations. And enough with dividing us up into different camps so that we look weak and isolated. Let's all stand together now.
Just want to let you know, in Cambridge, the Black Lives Matter movement is about connecting community. We have to talk to each other as neighbors, multicolored neighbors who want to make change, and we have to dismantle white supremacy, y'all. I'm sorry, sorta. That's in my bloodline too now.
We were reminded by a well-known speaker in the 90s that the prophet told us to do justice and to love mercy. Our tendency, unfortunately, is to love works of mercy and ignore the claims of justice. And so I call upon you, in the name of whatever faith you share, to get back to that principle and restore the plan that God has built into the world.
Okay. And if folks are watching gentrification happen in our neighborhoods, I am one of 3 Section 8 voucher holders, 3 of who are being targeted to be displaced from my home community of West Medford because the Green Line's extending to our community, and so therefore those of us who are low income are no longer able to live in our communities, where our children have been attending school, have been stable in our community.
There was a bathroom with 2 urinals, 2 stalls, neither one with a door on it, 3 sinks, 1 shower room with 8 shower heads for 225 men of all persuasions. It was frightening. If you were to spend one night going through that process, you would be ashamed to be a Bostonian.
White superiority and militarism, the relationship of all of those. Let's think for just a second in terms of American exceptionalism. We're 39th in nutrition and medical care in the world, 28th in water and sanitation, 30th in personal safety, 68th in health and wellness, 74th in ecosystem sustainability, 23rd in access to information and communications, and 1st in preparations for nuclear annihilation.
Always in history, there are detonator issues. Issues that bring something to a boil and bring it over the top. And one such issue may very well be hunger.
So I am asking the community to bond together and fight what we rightfully deserve, and that is food stamps so we can feed our children.
And this is what I wrote him. My country spends untold billions on wars and preparation for wars, yet refuses to adopt health care as a human right. It lets giant corporations take over the financing and delivery of care and looks the other way when health care services are dropped and facilities closed simply for not making enough money for the owners.
I cannot emphasize enough how damaging the privatization movement has been on Cambridge. Even our public housing is being converted into an experimental RAD process where the buildings will be mortgaged to fund much-needed maintenance. This is way more costly than simply having Congress fund public housing.
My name is Mary Regan, and I'm a war tax resistor. As we talked about earlier and throughout today, too much of our federal budget goes towards the military, and our budget is a moral document. When I think about war tax resistance, I think of the good we can do with our money. And that's why I'm a war tax resistor, because I want to be able to do that good and not wait for
Poor People's Campaign button, which I plan to hold on to. I do a lot of anti-foreclosure work these days, and what we figured out, and maybe I'll say this at the end if we have a few minutes, but is that the largest wealth transfer from communities of color since slavery happened in the last 15 years because of the subprime mortgages and foreclosures. And so Latino median wealth between 2005 and 2009 dropped 66%. Two-thirds was stolen. African American communities, 53%. Asian communities, 54%. Loss in wealth, not just income, but wealth. This is a travesty that underlies a lot of the other things that we're facing economically. And if they aren't using their trillions of dollars to get the federal budget that they want, instead of the federal budget that we know would be democratic and just, you're kidding yourself.